Moses and the Israelites take up a victory song of praise to the Lord. As in other places in the Bible, they pick out a specific reason for the praise. In verse 1 it says, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." The Lord is being honoured for being a man of war, which is the literal translation of verse 3. But more specifically, it is because he has fought for his people. They can now sing of him as their strength and might, for he has become their salvation. This recalls the events of the rescue in the Red Sea and emphasizes the superlative power of the Lord. In verses 6 to 7, "Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty you overthrew your adversaries. You sent out your fury. It consumed them like stubble." This effortless power was seen over nature as well. In verse 8, "At the blast of your nostrils the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea." The ancient Near Eastern cultures shared versions of a creation myth where gods fought to defeat chaos in order to establish order. These forces of chaos were represented by the sea or sea monsters. Here God merely snorts in anger, and the sea recoils in horror. In Psalm 74, the psalmist is waiting for God to deliver Israel, and he seems to be despairing. But he remembers the Red Sea. "Yet my God is from of old, working salvation in the earth. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness." Here the Red Sea deliverance is recalled using the mythological imagery. We see something similar in Psalm 89. "O Lord, God of hosts, who is as mighty as you, O Lord? Your faithfulness surrounds you. You rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them. You crushed Rahab like a carcass. You scattered your enemies with your mighty arm." Lord of hosts means Lord of armies, a title which celebrates God's unrivaled power and authority, but also his devotion to his chosen people, whom he will deliver from all the other authorities on earth, whether gods or tyrants. It looks back again to the great deliverance through the Red Sea. We can see from this the importance of these stories for identity and for hope. These things are to be passed on to children and grandchildren. They exist in narratives, songs, prophecies, and of course, festivals. What follows now is the wilderness wanderings. Despite their grumblings, God provides everything they need. The Israelites cry out for water, and God tells Moses how to make the bitter water drinkable. At this point, in 1525, he puts them to the test by giving them a statute. He informs them that he has laws and commandments and that they must do what is right in his sight. This is not a God whom they simply have to feed regularly. This is a God of particular character, which they must conform to if they are to be in relationship with him. The sign of the clean water underlines his attitude to this people. "I am the God who heals you." According to 16 verse 4, this is another test to see whether this people will accept instruction. The pattern for gathering the manna prepares them for how the Sabbath will shape their week when the Torah is given to them on Mount Sinai. Immediately the people fail to obey, and both Moses and the Lord are angry. Yet they remain patient, and it seems by verse 30 they are starting to submit. Another memorial or remembrance is instituted. A day's worth of manna is collected in a jar and put in the ark. The ark will not actually be built till much later in the book, after the giving of the law. Because these books came together gradually, different sections reflect different times of composition or editing. It is noted in verse 35 that the Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years and ate manna the whole time, so Moses' command must have come from a later point after the ark was made. It is sobering that in chapter 15 the Israelites celebrated God's salvation, but in chapter 16 they are grumbling, critical and disobedient. The human heart is incredibly fickle and ungrateful and needs constant reminding of the goodness of God.